Okay, welcome to chapter 3, part 2, question pitfalls. So if you remember in the previous video, chapter 3, part 1, we talked about the bipolar question. So the example of that was like, are you liberal or conservative? Do you like cats or dogs? Are you right or left-handed, I guess, technically. Those are all very intentional, seeking the choice between the two. However, it becomes a question pitfall when it's unintentional. So this is when you accidentally ask a question that can be answered yes or no when you really want something a lot more detailed. So some examples that can really easily become these unintentional bipolar questions are: do you? Did you? Are you? Can you? Is there blank? Was there blank? Because a lot of those can be answered with just yes or no when you're probably really wanting more of a detailed answer. Obviously, if it's an intentional bipolar question where you're looking for someone's preference between two things, then it is not a pitfall. But if it's unintentional, when you're looking for details and you accidentally word it in a yes or no, then it is a pitfall. There's the yes or no question, but that has a very obvious answer. Like, do you want to graduate? Yeah. Do you want to pass this class? Yeah, obviously. So there's typically one obvious answer, which would be a yes or a no. Do you wear your seatbelt while driving? Yes. Do you text and drive? No. Those could potentially be this yes or no question because there is one obvious answer or one, socially acceptable answer, I guess, to an extent. The tell me everything. When you say, tell me everything about Brazil or about yourself, or just tell me about blank, a lot of people don't know where to start, or they don't know where to end, I guess, depending on the person, if they like to talk or not. But it's way too broad. There's just too much there to like unpack and talk about. So you do need to be more specific. So instead of asking, tell me about yourself, ask something more specific. Like, what kinds of hobbies do you have? What are some things that make you happy or things that make you sad? Open to closed questions. So this is kind of like double-barreled. So you ask a question, but you kind of interrupt the other person and also interrupt yourself by tagging another question at the end that's closed. This is really easy to fix. We do this in speech a lot unintentionally, but like on paper, this is really easy to fix. So if we're writing out our questions and we accidentally do this, we just say, okay, tell me about your trip to New York. And then let them talk, let them finish. And then if they haven't already mentioned the 9/11 memorial, you could ask them about it. So it's just, you have to split this question into two. And then maybe they already answer it, so maybe you don't even ask this question. Or you could just say, on your trip to New York, did you visit the 9/11 memorial? Double-barreled, so two parts or two topics. So tell me about your trip to Rome and Venice. Most people are only going to pick the one they want to talk about or the first one that they remember. So they might just say something, superficial, like, oh, Italy was nice. Pretty superficial. Or they say, oh my gosh, Venice was beautiful. I love the canals. The water was so clear and all the swans were back because there haven't been a lot of tourists and da-da-da-da-da-da. Or they might just answer the only part that they want to and kind of forget about the other one if it happens to be more convenient or more controversial. They might choose the safer option. So you might have to restate the question or just once again split it into two. So tell me about some of the things that you did in Rome. Oh, in Rome, da 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 da. Okay, now can you tell me about your trip to Venice? Oh, okay, in Venice, da 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 da. Okay. Unintentional leading. So instead of an outright leading where we might have some personal bias in it, this one's just kind of unintentional based on how we ask a question. So through facial expression, body language, tone of voice, stuff like that. So leading unintentionally might be like, oh my gosh, did you vote for so-and-so in the student council election? Based on my tone of voice, that might seem like, well, why would you vote for them? Or, oh, I heard that you did this thing, is it true? So, guessing questions. So when you try to guess the information instead of just asking for it. Oh, did you join the military to be a pilot? Instead of saying, why did you join the military? Oh, did you attempt to do CPR? Were you in the car when the accident happened? You should reword those to say, where were you when you saw it? Or what did you do, rather than trying to guess what they did. So that first example of, oh, did you join the military to become a pilot, to why did you join the military? Curious, so asking information that may not be relevant or you don't need. As humans, we are very inquisitive and very curious creatures. We are all guilty of this, well, quote unquote, guilty of it. But it's information that we don't need for the interview. So typically, typically in most conversations, your marriage status, your religious beliefs, your income level, your political beliefs are not relevant. If it is specifically a survey or a study that is looking at marriage beliefs, religious beliefs, political beliefs, economic beliefs and status, etc., then that information is relevant. So question why someone is asking that if it seems irrelevant, because there always is the possibility that it is a bona fide question. So if you are the interviewer, then explain why this question is necessary, and if you are the interviewee and you feel uncomfortable about it, just ask why it's necessary. So it's only relevant, you should only answer that if it's relevant. But in job interviews, questions like this are illegal job interview questions, and they can't ask you it. Well, they can, but they shouldn't. You could ask the too high or too low question, where a question is either really high above someone's, experience or intellectual level, or it's too very low. And that can be very embarrassing for people, because if I'm trying to ask someone, an engineer or whatever, questions that only an engineering PhD graduate would know, and they're some little bachelor's kid, they're probably gonna feel bad or embarrassed, or be mad at me because I was embarrassing them. If I'm asking some the top engineer in the country questions that a high school student could answer, he's probably going to be insulted and think I'm just, jerking him around, because it's like, you could have Googled those questions. Why are you asking me? Like, anyone could tell you that E equals MC squared, or insert whatever here. Don't ask, don't tell. So this one can have some cultural dimensions to it, because these questions might be inappropriate to answer, or people are incapable of doing it, or just really don't want to because of social constraints, situational constraints, psychological constraints, because we tend to, at least in most of our cases, we have been trained to be more humble and not be boastful. So if someone asks us about our income level, we're not going to be like, oh yeah, I make insert amount of here. Isn't that great? We'd probably prefer not to talk about it and be more humble instead of being boastful about our salary or how much bonus we got. If the question is essential as part of the survey or the interview, then explain why. Why is it important that you need to know about someone's intimate relations with their partner for this interview? Well, if it's a question about, marriage status and things that happen in marriage and how that's affected by insert whatever here, then that might be relevant. But you're not going to start off with that one. You're going to delay it. You're going to ask it closer to the end of the interview after you've built rapport with someone, after you've established a good relationship with them. And now to the fun questions. Illegal ones, because technically people get asked these all the time, even though it is no bueno. So according to the EEOC, you can't ask people in a job interview about, what race they are or what country they come from. You can't ask them what religion they are. You can't ask them about their sexual orientation. You can ask things like if they're eligible to work in the United States, if they can work on Sundays, so on and so forth. You can't ask a woman if she is pregnant or planning on becoming pregnant, or if she has children or a family. You can't ask people about their disability. You can ask if they can, lift 50 pounds or 25 pounds as long as it's a bona fide qualification. You can't ask people their age because then you can get into age discrimination suits. That's kind of the citizenship and national origin similar. You can't ask if someone's a citizen of the United States or of Canada or of insert XYZ here. You can only ask if they are legal to work in the United States. So some common illegal interview questions are, have you ever been arrested? So they can ask if you've ever been convicted of a felony, but they cannot ask if you've ever been arrested. Because if you're applying for a job at a bank and you're a convicted felon for robbing a bank, they're probably not going to hire you. But if you've been, arrested but not charged for a DUI, then that doesn't matter. Like I said, they can't ask if you're married. They can't ask you what religious holidays you practice, but they can say, are you available to work at these times? And you don't have to give them a reason for why you aren't. Maybe you're not available to work after 2:30 because you got to go pick your kids up from soccer practice. You just have to say, I cannot work after 2:30. But you don't have to give the reason why. You could say, I don't work on Sundays, or I can't work on Sundays. You don't have to give a reason why. So they can't ask you about, your debt, your drinking, your smoking. They can't ask you if you do recreational drugs or illegal drugs. They can't ask how long you've been working. They can say, we want someone with 5 years of experience in this. Because that might be a bona fide qualification, but they can't say, oh, how long have you been working? Because if you started working at 16, 18, then they can get a rough estimate of your age if you say, oh, I've been working for a year or I've been working for 15 years. And they can't ask what type of military discharge you received if you were in the military. Because, if you had a dishonorable discharge based on something, that doesn't matter as long as you haven't been convicted of anything, right? Right. So there's the end of the pitfalls, and there is a video here that I already have in the chapter 3 lecture. Oh, well, if you're using an ad blocker, just you don't have to click on this because it is over here, it's a score here, it's like 2 minutes or something. It's okay, it's a minute. Um, but just look over this, think about these question pitfalls, because you will have a question pitfall assignment, and we will have to, well, you guys will have to write some interview questions that are free from these pitfalls. So if you guys have any questions, shoot me an email, shoot me a message in Canvas, and I will see you guys all soon. Thanks.